Today on this edition of Life After Sight Loss TV, we're going to talk about the many ways that sight loss can change your perspective. What's up, VIPs? Derek here, back with another edition of Life After Sight Loss TV, where it's all about helping you discover life after sight loss. On this channel, we do product reviews, life advice, encouragement, how-tos, and so much more. So if you're new here and that sounds good to you, consider smashing that subscribe button so you don't miss another single video. Obviously, when losing your sight, you know your perspective is going to change. The first thing you realize is that your sighted perspective changes, how you physically see things. I mean, that makes sense. Your perspective in that changes. But your perspective in life, I think, changes as well. You start viewing things through a different proverbial lens, if you will. And so today I want to talk about how those things can change. For example, how you view yourself starts to shift. How you view other people. How you view what it means to be visually impaired, or what it means to be a good husband and a good father, or a good child, or a good friend, or whatever the case might be. Your perspective on these things are going to shift and change. At first, you might view yourself in a very low way. You might say, oh, I'm blind, I can't do anything, this is awful, my life is over, that whole sort of thing. And your perspective shifts from looking out into the future and saying, wow, look at all that I had to look forward to one that says, wow, look at this, my life is over and now I can't do anything. That perspective changes. Now, over time, I will say that your perspective doesn't necessarily go back to that, but it does change to say, you know what? I may not be able to do this anymore. This might be done. But this part, this new life I'm sort of living now, it's actually going to be good. And things are changing, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So your perspective starts to change over time. Your perspective of what a good spouse and parent might change. Again, at first you might go from this I think a good spouse and parent is this, this, and this, to saying, wow, no, I can't drive and I can't do homework and I can't, clean the kitchen like I always could. Whatever your thing is, you might say, I can't do those because I'm blind, so I'm a bad spouse and parent. And again, we know that's not true, but your perspective starts to change. But then as you grow and you get, more into it, you realize that, wow, maybe this isn't so bad and I can do these things. Perspective shifts happen all the time in our lives. Whether it's moving to a new city, getting married, having a baby, all those things change our perspective on things. It changes our perspective on how the world works. It changes our perspective on how we work as people. It just changes so much. And sight loss is another moment in life where our perspective will change. But the interesting thing about sight loss is not only is our physical perspective changing, but our emotional, mental, spiritual perspective might be changing as well. And just as we have talked about today, be prepared that it might shift towards the negative at first. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But be prepared as you go through those negative, oh, this is all terrible. It's going to get better from there. Maybe not overnight, most likely not overnight, but your perspectives will shift. Probably through that negative phase at first, but then on to things where, yeah, I can do this. Life is good, and I'm excited about what's coming ahead of me. So while your perspective is physically changing, you can't see things like you always did, know that your emotional, your mental, your spiritual perspectives are probably changing as well. And just be prepared to sort of ride that roller coaster as things shift in your life. So my question for you today is this. Have you noticed that your perspective has changed over time? Maybe it was just recently that you lost your sight, or maybe you've been visually impaired for quite some time. How has your perspective changed over that time? I'd love to hear about it, and I know others would as well, so let me know in the comments below. Hey, if you like this video, if you found it helpful, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, share it with somebody you know, and smash that subscribe button so you don't miss another single video. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Life After Sight Loss TV, and until next time, remember that sight loss isn't the end, it's just the beginning. My name is Derek Daniel from LifeAfterSightLoss.com, and I'll see you in the next one.